isn't it? To think like that? It's like, this is, we think, oh, I have a body because I wanted it and I can enjoy it, but that's okay. But from Krishna's perspective, this is not why I gave you the body. I mean, you wanted that, but that's not what I wanted. It's not that's your plan. It's not my plan. Right? That's so. Let's go with your plan, Krishna, and I'll try to remember your plan. That's going to help me.
Well, thank you for the response to my question. I think this is an eternal question we're going to try to troubleshoot for the rest of our lives in this material world. Whether we came from there or we are given the opportunity to go back, might still keep going on. But I've heard different arguments supporting each side that we never came from the spiritual world, and there are very succinct arguments to support that we came from the spiritual world, but we will leave it there like that. His Grace Shriman Varaha Prabhu has something to ask or say. Please, you may unmute. Shriman Varaha Prabhu.
Sriman Varaha Acharya.
Yeah.
Prabhuji, please accept my obeisances. So glory to Srila Prabhupada. Thank you very much. In fact, I just want to say thank you. You're one of the very few ISKCON leaders who has come out very honest on this subject. I love honesty, especially when it comes to philosophy. We should be friend of the truth. You've spoken very clearly, Prabhu, without trying to be, how do you say it? We want to be society's man.
Please, everyone.
I just love the way you spoke on this matter, and I thank you very much. I love leaders who can be themselves and speak the truth. This is the only thing that makes us to join Krishna consciousness. When we saw the truth, the absolute truth being represented. But once we start, trying to be loyal to one side and not really going for the main truth, it disturbs the mind. This question has been addressed by many leaders on this forum. You are the first and the only person who has been very clear about what it is. You're not taking side, but you've spoken the truth about what it can be, what it is, and that is very satisfying. That we're not dealing with, somebody who is trying to be political or, how do you say, politically right, or what is this statement? What is this?
Politically correct.
Politically correct.
Politically correct. Yeah. So I mean, you win my heart, Prabhu, and you've always won my heart. You've been one of those who speak the truth, direct as it is. Thank you very much, Prabhu. Hare Krishna.
Yeah. I think there are, not that I think I know, there are a lot of topics that devotees think about. Not always maybe suitable for a Bhagavatam class, but important to discuss when there's an opportunity or when the questions come up. And when they don't get discussed, then we have to think about them on our own, the answers. And it's better we think about them in a group. And it's also, I'm sure many of you listening to this class have thought about these things, or maybe perhaps heard that not everybody agrees, and wondered about it, and wondered about why outside of ISKCON nobody says we came from Vaikuntha, and it's confusing. So to not talk about it is not good. And the other thing, which is really maybe a bigger issue, Varaha, is Sriman Varaha Acharya. If I believe in one way, then I could demonize devotees who believe in another way, isn't it? the dark, slippery path that Maya allures us on, that dangles the carrot in front of us. Oh, so, all the devotees that think this way, I don't like them, and I have my ideas about why they think that way and how they're corrupted and not loyal to Prabhupada and they don't have a philosophical brain or whatever. You could just go on. You can have a million reasons to not like them, isn't it? That's so dangerous. And then we extend that to people outside of ISKCON who don't agree with everything we agree with in ISKCON and think it's almost like to be loyal to Prabhupada, I have to offend these other people. Yeah, we can discuss philosophy, but offending them, that's not our job. That's Maya's trick. And I have a right to offend them because I think they're offending Prabhupada. They may not be offending at all. I might be offending Prabhupada by offending them, right? So this is a problem, my dear devotees, which I've seen too many times. Once is too much. So we have to be very careful about that. Very, very careful, because there's nothing that can harm our Krishna consciousness more than offending devotees. You can, do everything well, but offending devotees, it's like it just offends Krishna's heart. And it contaminates us, it contaminates people around us, the temple and so forth, if we're all doing it. It's really, really bad. And we don't want to, I'm afraid that we're like leaving this legacy of like justified aparad to the next generation. If oh, he said that, but he's a nonsense, what does he know? Well, he said he heard, Prabhupada's godbrother said he heard from Bhaktisiddhanta. What does he know? He's envious. Prabhupada said he was envious. And this whole conversation to defend, that we didn't fall from defend that we fell from Vaikuntha or something. And, that's a separate issue. It's a philosophical issue, which should be separate from the character assassination of people who said something we don't agree with. And then we conclude, well, whatever we conclude about them, that's offensive. That's really, really bad. And then that becomes the culture and we hand that down to others. That is destructive for our movement. And I think that's such an important point.
Well, thank you so much for sharing that. Well, that reminds me of a very important statement mentioned in the Bible. Lord Jesus Christ taught that we should hate sin, but not the sinner.
Yeah.
Which I think is very relevant in this particular instance. We may disagree with somebody's understanding or perception, but we should not demonize the individual.
It's actually coming from pride. That's the real problem.
Okay.
That's really, I mean, everything you said is true, but it's a symptom of the pride. And I think we need to recognize that it's, sometimes it's like, okay, you have to defend your guru, you have to defend your Siddhanta. But a lot of times in the name of defending it, it's just pure pride and ego. And so, we need to be reflective to understand, to see where we're coming from. It will, it's like if someone says, well, we didn't fall from Vaikuntha, you could take that as an attack on, well, what are you saying? Prabhupada didn't know the philosophy. Or you could take it as an attack on the GBC, who established that, no, we did. That's the policy. You know what I mean? So it's like, it's like all hooked up with emotion as like we say, I don't talk about politics and religion. There's so much emotion there. And that emotion becomes the soil for aparad. And, it's pride is like, often we don't think it's pride. We just think it's justifiable in some way. And maybe it could be justifiable, but aparad is not justifiable, even if your Siddhanta is justifiable.
Yeah.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. I think Krishna Prabhu.
Yes, Prabhu. Hare Krishna,
Okay,
Prabhu.
go ahead. Yes.
Amul Obesansis Maharaj, Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
My question, you just recently you mentioned offense,
Yes.
apparat. That is where
Yes.
my question comes. Is it only a senior devotee that offend a devotee? Can a senior devotee offend a junior devotee?
Yes.
Can a sannyasi offend a grihasta, a bhakta?
Yes. Yes.
So how does a sannyasi know that he has committed an offense to a pure devotee who is lower than him, materially speaking, or physically speaking?
Well, this is is an interesting question because, one answer could be, well, if the devotee is offended, that means you offended him. But, if the devotee has like low self-esteem, they're easy to offend because you just don't say hello one day, they're offended. Isn't it? Sometimes it's like that. So, um, I think maybe it's better to look at your question from the point of view of can we offend? And the answer is you can offend anybody, not even just a devotee or a new bhakta. There's the thing, we have Vaishnava aparad, which of course means offending a Vaishnava, but also we have Jana aparad. Jana means person, so I can offend people. And so offending a person is not healthy for my bhakti because amanina manadena, I should be respectful, right? But the higher up I go, the higher up the person is, the more Krishna conscious they are that I offend, the more I suffer. So if you're going up to the level of Srila Prabhupada, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Bhaktivinoda Thakur, or other great devotees, God brothers of Prabhupada and so forth, and offending them, that could be disastrous for your bhakti. You offend a new bhakta, maybe your japa won't be good the next day, or you'll be a little disturbed. But we need to be extremely cautious, everyone. And so, the interesting thing about your question is there's sometimes just the fact that we would have that question, or maybe you already know the answer and you just wanted to me to talk about it. But
I don't know the answer. I want to know the answer.
yeah, well, as I advance, right? As I advance in Krishna consciousness, shouldn't I be more humble? In theory, on paper, pass the exam. If you ask that question in your Bhakti Shastri exam, do you become more humble when you're advanced? Yeah, right. Of course, we know the answer is not necessarily. Well, then we could say, if you're not becoming more humble, then I guess you're not more advanced. You've been around longer. So there's, I'm going to take this into a whole other topic now because this is on my mind. But what we're talking about here is when a leader feels entitled to the point where they can offend somebody or shame them or gaslight them or manipulate them and so forth, then you're in the realm of spiritual abuse. And
Spiritual abuse.
Spiritual abuse. And if we're advancing and becoming more humble, we become more respectful. And so we would never do that because we would never feel I'm your guru. I'm entitled to make you feel like a piece of dust. That's actually my job, to make you feel like a piece of dust. Well, maybe in some cases it is, but if you're coming from a very humble position and you're trying to help someone become humble, that's different. But if it's coming from any kind of false ego or pride, it's abusive. And there, obviously there's a fine line between abuse and strong instruction. But if someone thinks, well, I'm beyond the law, you can't criticize me, and I have all right to criticize you, how are you going to spread a movement like that? It's only going to attract dysfunctional people. People who think they deserve to be chastised, or people who are, narcissistic, who want to control. So, we just had Jayananda's disappearance day, and I had his association with some great fortune. So I got to see what an advanced devotee, like, you talk about advanced devotee, he was like on the top of the mountain. And he was the most humble person any devotee in ISKCON has ever met. by far, no competition. So you think of your most humble devotee you've ever met, Jayananda was like light years beyond. No false ego, no pretension. And we all respected him as a saint. They go, he's a saint, right? So if someone's advanced, but they don't exhibit the quality of humility, something is wrong. Something's wrong in there. It's not right. It's just like if someone is quote unquote advanced and they don't like to chant Hare Krishna, it's a contradiction. But when you're advanced, you like to chant more. When you're advanced, you're more respectful. You're more introspective. People can tell you, you know, you said this in class that wasn't right. I say, I'm sorry, I shouldn't have said. Yeah, you're right. I shouldn't have said that. Instead of, who are you to tell me, you know? So, but it's a problem if leaders don't exhibit that kind of vulnerability and humility, because then it creates a culture where when you become a leader, then you'll feel like you're entitled to chastise everybody and no one's entitled to give you any feedback. Right? And I think that is death. If we do that, it's death for ISKCON. It's not, I mean, ISKCON could exist, but that's not Vaishnav culture. It's Western culture. And even people in the West are understanding that doesn't work, isn't it? In some of the corporate world, you know, they're understanding, hey,
Yeah.
the leader's got to be humble, you know, because otherwise, if he's not humble, everyone's going to leave because they can't talk to him. They can't tell him anything. They can't share ideas. They can't give him feedback. Yeah. So, this is, you know, the leaders are the exemplars, and whatever the leaders do, everyone else is going to think, oh, that's the culture. That's what you do. And we bring in baggage. So, you know, you might be a nice devotee, have good sadhana and all, but you have like proud samskaras. And so when you get a position, it just goes to your head and you start controlling, manipulating, you know, preaching very heavily, you know, that then other people see that and think, oh, when I become a leader, that's what I should do. Or I'm sick of being shamed and guilt tripped. I want to become a leader. So it won't happen to me anymore. And then I'll do it to other people. What kind of culture is that? That's insane. Hare Krishna.
Yeah, but the previous verse to this one you spoke now, that was yesterday, we saw how Narada Muni helped the mother to serve the sages during
Yeah.
Diplomacia,
Yeah.
and he developed taste of devotional service.
Yes.
We also saw how Ajamila, who was a Brahmin, fell down.
Yeah.
So
yeah, exactly.
my question in that is about association. Narada Muni associated with the sages
Yeah.
it have effect on him to become a great devotee.
Yeah. Yeah.
So in this kind of world or in Vaishnava society, since Prabhupada came till now, there have been so many sadhus who are giving darshan
Yes.
according to the scripture and the
Yes.
movement, who are giving darshan to many people around the world.
Yes.
And yet, people are not having taste of devotional service like Narada Muni had. So my question is, people still leave the movement or leave devotional service. My question is, could it be that these sadhus are not really sadhus? That the association is not having effect on the karmis who are meeting them? Or is the problem on the karmis?
Yeah. Takes two to tango. It could be both. It could be either one. I can tell you how I think. If I'm dealing with somebody and somebody's having difficulty and I'm either their spiritual master or mentor, or I'm around them and regularly trying to help them, I never think it's their fault. I always think it's my fault. I always think if I were more pure, my presence would be able to help them through this. I always think that way. I think that's the way we have to think. And, you know, we don't want to point the finger at someone else. We just want to say, well, you know, like I think when I say there's so many problems in my temple, and then I think, but I'm in the temple. So that means there's something wrong with me, that I'm not pure enough to purify it, rather than there's everything wrong with everybody else. You know, if we all thought, well, the problem is with me, and if I get better, the temple will get better, that's a better way of thinking. Otherwise, you know, we're going to blame it on everyone. You're in Maya. Brahacharya, you're in Maya. You know, I told you what to do, and you're so much in the mode of ignorance, you can't do it. Rather than think, I told you what to do, but my presence somehow that didn't inspire you, that I'm not pure enough. Here's a story, couple stories. Devotees were complaining, you know, in the early days in Bengal. I don't know what was going on in Bengal, but they were having a hard time, I guess. Probably most people were not into Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, but they were into worship of Durga. And devotee was complaining, it's so hard to preach in Bengal, we can't make these people devotees. No, they were saying like, these people can't become devotees. And Prabhupada said, the people can't become devotees, or you can't make them devotees. So the answer, you know, Prabhupada's asking a rhetorical question. And so he's throwing it back on the devotee. Don't complain about the people. It's your fault that you couldn't do it. In one time, Prabhupada was asked, how far is Mahaprabhu's prediction of every town and village? How far will that come true? And he says, well, that depends on you. Depends on the devotees who are preaching. So I think that's the only way for us to see this situation. You know, say, well, this temple would be better if Varahacharya were more Krishna conscious. Well, what about me? Why am I pointing my finger at him? Well, Varahacharya is the leader. Whatever, but I'm in the temple. And I know if Thakur Haridas walked in the temple right now, things would be different. The morning japa class, the japa sessions would be a lot better than with me sitting in the temple, chanting my rounds and nodding out and looking at my phone, right? Yes?
Yeah.
Hare Krishna. So I would answer your question and say, yes, it definitely can be, but I don't think we should point our finger at anyone other than ourselves. We know, disciples of Prabhupada, we know what it's like when a pure devotee walks this planet. Like things are like crazy. And you've seen Prabhupada's disciples, even though they may not have the full potency of Prabhupada, but things happen when they show up. And those who have left us, we miss them dearly because they left a gap that nobody can completely fulfill because of their power. And you know, when people meet your guru, you know, just like someone you trying to cultivate and get them to become a devotee, and then they meet your guru and they're like, I want to be a devotee. Isn't it? You've seen that before? Or they meet some sannyasi or something and they just hear the class or whatever.
Yeah.
So that the answer to your question is, yeah, that's true. And we need to become that devotee that inspires them. At the same time, there were so many people who had Prabhupada's association who left Krishna consciousness, so many people who never came, who heard him. So, you know, it takes two. So even I kind of feel like it's a combination. My desire and the desire and purity of the person who's trying to help me become Krishna conscious. And the stronger their desire, probably the stronger my desire. But my resistance could be 108%, and therefore I'm not affected, at least consciously, by their sangha. So there's, you know, Prabhupada always said, I can't help you if you don't follow what I teach you. So it's, you know, it's a combination, but certainly we should all be thinking, you know, the lack of spreading Krishna consciousness in the world or my city, my temple, my community. If I become more Krishna conscious, certainly it's going to get better. No question. Right?
Well, thank you so much.
Sorry, please wait.
Yeah, go ahead. Okay.
I'm not done, please.
Go
Maharaj,
ahead.
I have another question. Today is my day.
Okay.
My question is, when you come to this platform, we bombard you with so much questions. Do you feel we are challenging you? Do you feel challenged? Or do you love the questions?
No, not at all. I feel I'm given an opportunity to clarify what needs to be clarified.
Thank
You know, because sometimes the questions are good, but there may be some ignorance in the question. It's like, oh, good, I can like clarify it, or I can use this question to jump to a topic, I think is even more important than the question.
Yes.
So I don't want to shut anybody up. I think that's the worst thing we could do. I think we need to let people talk what's on their mind and what they're feeling without judging, and give honest answers as best we can, according to our realization. Not just to give an answer by the book, because this is the politically correct answer. And, if I don't give this answer, they'll never let me give class again. The answer should be honest, which could be, I don't know the answer, or I have this question also, and this bothers me as well. All this. This is only fair. I believe this is only fair to those who are asking the questions. And I learned something, this is really interesting, that you can benefit from. And then we'll call on you, Mitravinda will call on you. I was trained by a professional company. It was like a 5-day training or something, and how to facilitate seminars. These are like transformational seminars that go like 12 hours a day. ISKCON is seminar is just a bunch of lectures put together. We call it a seminar because it's one topic. But this is interactive. This is you're doing all kinds of introspection and workshops and like that. And how to do that for 12 hours where you keep the audience engaged. And they taught one thing. They taught many things. And one interesting thing they taught was, if someone asks a question, even if it's a difficult question, or the question reveals like they weren't paying attention to what you were saying, or it reveals a misconception, whatever the question is, answer it, or ask someone else in the audience to answer it if you've already answered it in the lecture, and then thank them for the question. Say, thank you for that question. This is like a horrible question. But thank you for that question. Why? Because you don't want to discourage people from asking questions. And if I say, Varaha Acharya, thank you for the question, but like that was a bad question. I wish you wouldn't have asked that. Now, Mitravinda's hand's going to go down. No one's going to raise their hand. It's like, well, isn't it? It's like, what if, right?
They renounce.
I wonder if I'm going to get chastised. But if you say, thank you for that question, it was a really nice question, I appreciate it, then everyone's like, oh, we can ask questions. It's open. That we have to create that environment where we can share our doubts, because if we don't share our doubts, then we'll die with the doubts inside of us. We don't want that. Is that okay?
Yes, Maharaj. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you so much. Kusha, thank you for the question, and more importantly, Mahatma Prabhuji, thank you so much for the answer. Mitravinda Devi, please, you may unmute.
Hare Krishna, thank you so much, Maharaj. Please, my humble obeisances, all glories to Srila Prabhupada. I'm very grateful that you're here today. I appreciate you so very much for your honesty, for your spiritual integrity, for your kindness, your care, and for the fire that you bring to this platform, and being fearless in your effort to have us all receive the aspects of Krishna consciousness that relate to love and care and opportunity, and all of these things that are for each of us individually as practicing devotees, and for those who might want to come and join in or not, but honor God in their lives. Oh my gosh, spiritual integrity. Oh, before I go into that now, in so many ways you remind me of my Guru Maharaj Bhakti Tirtha Swami, because he was fearless. He didn't play any games relatable to time and, politics. He was often fighting to have the platform that these things that you're speaking, he often fought to have us actually try to grasp and hold on to and realize more these aspects of care and compassion. So that one of the last things you said about, so it relates to education, the aspect of who gets to feel inspired and who does not, and why. Is it political? Are they connected to me? Are they someone I like because of whatever, they give big donations, or their complexion, or if their grandfather is a godbrother of mine, versus someone who I don't like them. Oh, he's a troublemaker. She's a troublemaker because she asks questions or he asks questions. And so when they ask a question, I'm going to crush them publicly. And this shows my power, illusory power, but this also creates a paradigm that I'm in control and everybody else gets to see it. And now you know what to do and what not to do. It's an educational platform. Unfortunately, it doesn't do well in educational systems for children, nor does it do well on platforms or in temple rooms. So thank you very much for bringing that up. I wanted to, if you might speak about emotional intelligence and leadership. There's a quote regarding leadership, one who does things, who has a desire to do things correctly, and one who has a desire to do the right thing correctly, or do things right and do things, something similar to that. I'll send it to you if I might.
That makes sense. Yeah.
Yeah, but I'd really love for you to speak about emotional intelligence. You spoke about non-sectarianism, which is an aspect of the service that I was very fortunate to be able to do at the onset of a lot of things relatable to people not caring or controlling and things like that. So just moving forward, even though emotional intelligence is never spoken about, would you please speak about it? In regards to Krishna consciousness and service.
Yeah. Well,
thank you.
It's a big topic, but well, you want to relate it to leadership first? Is that where the question was going? Yeah. Within the Sangha that I direct, I've seen some aspects of leadership that I was shocked by, or I would say surprised that they happened, because it goes against our values. And so I said, actually, it's my fault, because I never had like a statement on leadership, a culture document. So I started creating one. And these are things I've thought about a lot. And I have talked amongst many devotees about just a training that everyone in ISKCON would have to go through. Everyone, not just the leaders, every devotee, before you could even put your diapers on, which would include all kinds of self-development and emotional healing. And of course, emotional maturity would be part of it, because you know well how when people are not healed emotionally and they get into a leadership position, that it all comes out in very dysfunctional ways, and everyone's affected by it. I was having a talk the other day with a devotee and said, especially we're talking about gurus, because gurus have the most power. They're in the most powerful position. Even if you're a temple president of a temple with 10,000 people, those people can leave anytime they want. They have no obligation to you. And they don't necessarily have to have faith in you or even have it. But when you're a leader, especially a guru, and you're trying to use your disciples to help you heal your own traumas and fulfill your needs and so forth, that is horrible. And if you're not emotionally mature, you'll do it and you won't even know you're doing it, right? I think a lack of emotional maturity also comes up in the inability to solicit feedback and take it, what to speak of take it, to want to get feedback, to admit that I made a mistake, to admit I didn't know something. I think that's all, I always equate I don't think, to me, I mean, I could be wrong, but I don't think a person can be actually genuinely humble who's not emotionally mature, at least not in a holistic sense, maybe in some sense. So I would say for a leader, 100%, 108%, absolutely. And the reason I say this is because I've seen so many problems that have happened in the lives of devotees because of leaders who lacked a you could call it emotional, psychological level of healing, purity, maturity, whatever you want to call it. And We've all seen this. So I don't know in terms of training leaders what ISKCON is doing at the GBC College, if they have anything like this for helping the leaders. But I think any of us who know anything about these topics would just be like so happy if everyone who joined ISKCON could just go through a program that would clean up these past samskars so that they, you know, when there's relationship issues, they would know how to deal with it. It'd be easy for them to apologize. They would ask for feedback, and everybody would be doing that. Forgiveness would just be part of the culture. Self-care would be part of it. Wouldn't that be nice? You know, I've seen it in other organizations, which is like, was like so disturbing. If you're in another organization that has, and the people have less ego, better relationships, more empathy, more compassion than your average devotee has, it's bewildering. So that, you know, and that organization may not be even that spiritual. It's bewildering. And I think the problem, Mitravinda, is spiritual bypassing. We just put all our eggs in one basket of the holy name, and we don't do this other work. And we don't think we have to. You know, well, I chant, I go to Bhagavatam class, and I do seva, so I'm good to go. So I think spiritual bypassing could be at the heart of a lot of our problems, which is why we see in other organizations they don't have them. And I've worked with other organizations. I've done trainings with them, so I see how they operate. And one thing I noticed that's really interesting is that they don't have the Maha Mantra, so they can't spiritual bypass. They actually have to do the work because they don't have a way around it. And we have a way around it. So holy name will give everything. Yeah, maybe if you chant Shuddhanam and you're not traumatized from the time you were like 6 months old, maybe yeah. But if you're not chanting Shuddhanam and you know you come from a traumatic background and you've got all kinds of samskars that are problematic, then you need to work on that stuff. People always ask the question, do we need to do anything else aside from chant to work on our issues? And I always say, well, do you have issues? And have you been chanting? It's like, doesn't that answer the question? So I think that's a big issue for me. And I just trust that ISKCON in the future will understand all these things. And I'll do my little part while I'm here. And I find that, like the things we're talking about, there's so many devotees that resonate with it, but they're just waiting for a leader to talk about it. And you go, oh, that's how I think, but I thought it was wrong. Or I thought I'd get kicked out of the temple if I said that. Or, you know, they wouldn't give me a sweet ball for dinner if I brought up this question. So I didn't say it. And so then when the leader talks about it, he goes, oh, I'm glad he said it, because they'll still give him the sweet ball. And now it means that I can say it. But that's where I think we have a weakness, and it's not anyone's fault. It's just we don't think we need to work on these things because we just need to do more of the process, which of course is true, but some things, you know, we're stuck in, we need to face. And you know, I mean, shouldn't our leaders be the most humble? Shouldn't they be the ones who are washing the pots also? I was washing my daughter's in Mayapur. I was washing her car the other day, and she's coming back. I used the car, and if you use someone's car, you should always give it back cleaner than they gave it to you. That's just as a like, or you let they let you stay at their house when they're on vacation. You should leave it cleaner, not just if you're a Brahmin. That's just a good policy. So I was cleaning her car, and my wife was gone, so I'm living alone. And so I'm cooking 3 meals, cleaning the kitchen, cleaning, you know, sweeping up, cleaning the floor, getting down, you know. Then I wash my daughter's car and doing, you know, then shopping and doing all these things. And I was thinking, I think this kind of work is actually really important for leaders to do, because if you don't do it, you lose touch with people and the reality in the world, and sometimes you can't relate to them. So like, you know, go cook for yourself sometimes, get down and wash the floor, you know, go, you know, vacuum your car out, do it yourself, even though you can have people do it for you. I think it affects the consciousness positively if you do those things, because you're like everybody else, even though you're a big Maharaj, whatever. But no, but he's like everybody else. He's so real, he understands. I think that's important. And I think, we allow our leaders to not have to do anything that all the other 8,600,000,000, whatever, 300 million people do. They don't have to do it. It could have adverse effects, I think. Hare
Well,
Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Thank you so much, Prabhuji. It's very humbling hearing you speak what you're sharing with us today. But the mind and the heart, I don't know, is such that we may hear something that really sounds right, that is really good. We all feel that is really good for us. But in the twinkle of an eye, the mood is changed and we go back to our own unfortunate, crazy mood again.
Yeah.
But I believe at the present moment, as we all sit here, hear you share with us what you're sharing, we all have some sense of guilt and the desire to do better. But I'm afraid when we get up from here, the mood may be different. It might not be a better one. But we pray and hope that the feelings, the good feelings we're having now, presently, will continue even after the end of this class.
Well, but can I just address this point?
Yes,
I think something that we can all do to help us is just say, what kind of culture do we want, and what kind of culture do we want to leave the next generation with? And how are our actions now, are they or are they not producing the culture that we would like to leave with our children, or in a decade with the next set of leaders? And I think that can really like chasten us and like, oh my God, well, I'm a leader. I can't act this way because I'm creating a culture and I don't even like the culture I'm creating, or I can see that this kind of culture is not going to work, or it's not going to work for this generation. Maybe it worked for my generation. It can make it easier for us. And so just to say, by what I'm thinking, feeling, acting, putting out there, what kind of culture am I creating? And how's this going to manifest? Where is it? It's like scary to take it 10 years ahead, 20 years ahead, isn't it?
Yeah.
Because then you say, oh, well, maybe the culture that I envision, it's not going to happen the way we're all acting now. And also the other thing is, part of the fault also is not our misbehavior, but it's tolerating others' misbehavior. So if we allow any kind of abuse to go on, if we allow wrong things to be said in classes and not challenge and correct it, if you see some other devotee mistreating someone, and I mean, maybe not abusing, but just not treating them properly, and we don't say anything, then where's the culture going? It's like Kali is just entering. So I think that's something that can help us like imbibe what we know we should be doing. And I think it's also important to talk about it, like amongst yourselves. Like, how can we talk about it, monitor it, practice it, go back to the drawing board? How can we do better? See, to me, the reason I talk about these things is because I look at Prabhupada's vision through his example and through his books. So when I don't see that in ISKCON, it upsets me. And you say, oh, I'm honest or whatever. It's just, I don't want to die thinking I contributed to an organization that doesn't represent Prabhupada. And if I know Prabhupada, like if you told me we're being mistreated, it upsets me because that's not why Prabhupada created ISKCON. He didn't create ISKCON so you could be mistreated. He didn't create ISKCON so a leader could, inflate their ego and control and abuse. And so we should all be upset when we see it because we know what Prabhupada came to give, to take care, to show respect and appreciation for everyone. And it's so upsetting to me when I don't see that. And so I'm not afraid to speak out because if it's what Prabhupada wanted, then I feel like I'm at fault if I don't speak out.
Yeah.
The sin of what do they call it? The sin of I forget the word when you omission, the sin of omission.
The sin of omission, yes.
Yeah. Anyway, I'm sorry to interrupt. You can go ahead.
Actually, I was going to say I have one quick comment and
Yes.
one question. Yesterday, this platform, Hare Krishna Africa, we were very much blessed. We had the presence of His Holiness Chandramali Maharaj speak to
Okay.
us. And in answering one of the questions put to him, Maharaj said, there was a time when there was this little boy sitting on a branch of a tree and sawing the branch.
Yeah.
So another person passing by saw this boy sawing the branch, and then he told him, hey, if you do not stop sawing the branch, you're going to fall and hurt yourself. He didn't listen and kept sawing. And eventually he fell. And when he fell, he addressed the person who spoke to him that, oh, I didn't know you are a prophet. So I am not a prophet. I'm not a seer. I'm nothing. I'm just a struggling individual trying to honor my guru's instructions. But what I see is that there may likely never be a point in time in ISKCON that we will have so many influx of dedicated devotees at the same time as during Srila Prabhupada's physical presence with us in this material world, because when second, third generations, when we look up to direct disciples of Srila Prabhupada and their dedication to Srila Prabhupada and to the entire organization is indescribable. And it is so beautiful that my Guru, His Holiness Bhaktivedanta Swami Maharaj, actually trained us. And I was saying this to the devotees we were blessed. We met with His Holiness Ratanath Swami Maharaj 2 days ago. And I was sharing this with the devotees that we were fortunate our Guru Dev trained us in such a way that he said that as much as we love him and honor him and respect him, we should even do more of such to his God brothers and God sisters.
Nice.
Yes, and which actually is like the very culture of Africans, because in Africa, we respect our fathers, but even more so is the uncle. We respect and honor the uncles much more even than the father.
Wow.
So it is very inspiring when we hear somebody like your humble self speak the way you speak. It reinforces the unimaginable wisdom of Srila Prabhupada, that he did not make any particular individual the absolute power of ISKCON.
Yes.
Because there has been this dilemma of absolute power in society, and so many great politicians and intellectuals, educators have come up to the point of understanding that no one can be given an absolute power because absolute power corrupts. Only Krishna has an absolute power. Srila Prabhupada refers to Krishna as an autocrat, which in our material sense will mean negative. But Krishna doesn't have to consult with anybody with what he intends to do. But for us as living entities, we need that. And therefore, if even someone is a leader, like we hear and see many times, Srila Prabhupada will ask his disciples whether what he said or what he did was right. But if we have a leader who feels that nobody can tell him or her anything, so the way I see ISKCON is that ISKCON is going to bleed very badly when all of Srila Prabhupada's direct disciples are gone. And then maybe, because it's Lord Chaitanya's prediction, at some point in time, things will get better. But once Srila Prabhupada's disciples are all gone, there is no doubt in my mind that ISKCON is going to face some serious problems. And my prayer is that Srila Prabhupada, the previous acharyas, and Krishna see us all through if we are still here. It's a concern I've been having for a very long time. And so from time to time, I speak about it. And I also question myself, just like you said, what can I do to contribute to overcoming such challenges? I've even lost my question, but I think I'm
Well,
okay.
I can mention something that's interesting that you may not know. That a lot of the devotees today, or some of them, who are leaders in the movement, who are those special devotees you're talking about, were always nice devotees, but they weren't, quote unquote, special during Prabhupada's time. And Radhanath Swami, I was told, said that when he first went to Chaupati, he was not a guru. Of course, he was a sannyasi. And he was just serving under Kirtanananda. And so that was really Kirtanananda's temple, and Kirtanananda's, it was still a zonal acharya. So everyone was becoming his disciples. So Radhanath Swami did not have any disciples, I think, till 2003. So after Kirtanananda left, and when Maharaj kind of became more of a prominent person over time, maybe not initially, but over time, I was told when he was glorified for that, he said, well, what happened is all the people above me disappeared. So maybe that included some people who left with Kirtanananda also. And he said, so it was like, I just was like, I was the next one in line. So it's like, so it wasn't, so a lot of these devotees came up because there was a vacuum and there was no one to fill it. And they were kind of like next in line, not necessarily so experienced, like a preacher, or he was a preacher and a pujari. And that's what he knew how to do. But he was a very advanced devotee, but his light was like blocked in because Kirtananda, was on the stage. So it's also what I think is going to happen, or we hope what's going to happen, is that there's going to be a lot of people that will come up that maybe you don't notice now because there's people above them. And those people above them, like a lot of times you don't know how qualified someone is because the person above them does everything.
Yeah.
And so they don't need them. And, that person below them could be as or more qualified, but they're not needed. And so they're just given a lesser position because their skills aren't needed. So hopefully what we'll see also, and this may have a positive effect, I don't know, just so you don't have to be depressed about the future. But when Prabhupada was here, we didn't have a lot of devotees. And so we had to do everything, and we were all young. So there was like, you think today, a 1-year-old devotee who's 20 years old being a temple president. It was like, there's no way. We would never allow that. They would mess everything up. But that's what we did. Of course, the temples were small. There weren't big responsibilities. But we had to do that. We had to take Brahmin initiation in 6 months because we needed to worship the deity. So you've joined first initiation 2-3 months. 2-3 months later, you get second, you're on the altar, you're giving class twice a week, just very young devotees. So you become very good at what you're doing very quickly. And so part of the problem I see since those times that Prabhupada left is we have experienced devotees. So the ones who could rise to the occasion, they're not given the opportunity. So we have this situation here in America with the Krishna House program, and Krishna House is a program where people come and live with devotees and gradually become devotees, but they can live and go to school, live and work, and so on. And so Kalakanta Prabhu is in charge of the Krishna House here, but he's opened, I don't know, 5-6 Krishna houses around America, and more will be opened. And so what he does is when the devotees join in Gainesville after like a year or two, he says, or a year and a half, go out and open a new Krishna house. They're young devotees. So now they're in charge of the next Krishna house. So and they're all doing really well. But in the normal scenario, they wouldn't. They would just be like, oh, there's so-and-so Prabhu, so-and-so Mataji. So I think that we might see that when those spaces are left, people start become rising stars and become moons that we didn't even know because we never gave them facility. So that could happen. And I don't think any of us should be afraid to, Prabhupada said he wanted his disciples to outdo him. And he said, I'd be very happy if you do more than me. And not only that, he said, you will do more than me. That's how it should be. He said, I did more than my guru. You should do more than me. So I think if we, augment our thinking that way, that's also helpful. It's not, offensive or minimizing my guru. It's actually glorifying him. So let's hope that these empty spaces left by these lights will be filled in by more and more devotees who become inspired and think, well, I can do that also. Hopefully.
Yes. Maharaj, thank you very much. I have one last question. Before you
Okay.
go.
Go for it.
Kusha,
I remember something.
Kusha, hold
No,
on.
don't call my name.
Hold on 1 second, please. Mahatma Prabhu, please. What you just said very much reminds me of one statement my big brother, His Grace Shimabara Acharya, has been saying a couple times, and that is that some of us are not bettering ourselves because we are either consciously or unconsciously killing that pioneering spirit. Everybody has become like relaxed, comfortable in their position. But if we pick up this pioneering spirit that we need to go out there, preach and spread, like Kalakanta Prabhu is training these students,
Yes.
I think things will get better. So I just wanted to share that. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, it's like,
Please go ahead, Kush Prabhu.
Maharaj, I remember you mentioned before on offenses, you make a statement that one trying to defend his guru or ISKCON committing offense or fighting people who are not ISKCON devotees. I can't exactly remember how you said it. You may show something like that.
you want me to say it again?
Yes, please. Then I can ask the question.
I said it's dangerous when we disagree with somebody
Yes.
because the disagreement becomes equated with I don't like you because you don't agree with me. So then that evolves into criticism, like, well, how could you be so stupid to think like that? How could you be so stupid to think that we didn't fall from Vaikuntha when Prabhupada said it? How could you be so stupid to think that we fell from Vaikuntha? You can't fall from Vaikuntha, So if there's not a sufficient degree of humility then these kinds of philosophical discussions or disagreements become the breeding ground for offenses. And as Prabhupada said, it's only within that will be destroyed. And so, that's such a powerful statement. We can only be destroyed from within. And we see that, since Prabhupada left, there's so much internal conflict within ISKCON or outside with people outside of it, more so outside. And it's like Prabhupada saying, hello, what are you doing? I told you this is how you're going to destroy yourself. And it's almost like Maya has just like got control of us. So we're supposed to be respectful to all living entities, and we should respect all devotees. And we may not agree with them. We may have to state our differences publicly if necessary, because we feel that what they're saying is detrimental to the well-being of ISKCON or others. But 5 years from now, we may realize actually I was wrong. I actually agree with that devotee. That happens also, doesn't it? You're like, there's no way anyone who thinks that we didn't fall from Vaikuntha is in Maya but offended to Prabhupada. And then like we talk to you 5 years and go later, well, I've been reading a lot of books and discussing with a lot of senior devotees, and I see it differently. And after you criticized everyone who didn't agree with you. So, it's like,
So that comes to my question, like if in ISKCON, I'll use this platform for example. We only allow ISKCON devotees to give class on this platform.
yeah, yes.
And anybody who's not ISKCON devotee, they've been trying to speak. And we normally say no, we decline.
Yes.
Because we are thinking ISKCON would think we are bringing people from other sampradaya or other movement to speak. So
Yes.
consciously or unconsciously, we're committing offense at them while trying to protect ISKCON's integrity or whatever it is.
Yeah.
So can you speak on this?
Yeah. That's an interesting question. Committing an offense it could be an offense, but you could say, Maharaj, we would love to have you speak on our platform, but it's just the policy of whatever, this platform or this temple or whatever. And we mean no offense to you, but it's only people within ISKCON, and just, please accept our apologies. I would love to do that. That's not offensive. But what would be offensive is, we're not going to invite you because you represent this, and, we feel you don't represent Prabhupada well, and there's differences in the philosophy, and we don't appreciate it, and we have to protect the younger. That's, so it depends on your mood, whether it's offensive or not. It amounts to the same thing. Maharaj, we can't let you speak, but how you're feeling about it may offend him or may not offend him. So, what is your understanding? This Maharaj is bogus because he left Prabhupada, and he's a Prabhupada disciple, but now he's with Narayan Maharaj, so we think he's, offensive, blah, blah, blah. But that's all going to come out when he says, can I speak on your platform? Or people are suggesting that he speaks on your platform. And then when you talk about it, it's all going to come out.
Mm-hmm.
So then it's kind of like, my point is, it's like, it may be the correct decision that he doesn't speak. That I'm not arguing with that one way or the other. But as a leader and how you deal with it, number one, your own Krishna consciousness is involved. And number two, you're setting an example and creating a culture for others. So, like Sahadev could say, I really like so-and-so Maharaj, and I would really be nice if he speaks, and I think he would could help us. But at this point, it's just not going to work. And I explained that to him, and he was very cordial, and he understood. And I respect him. And, I like listening to his lectures privately. I've got a lot from it. I think ISKCON devotees would benefit from it. I think he's ISKCON friendly, even though he's not in ISKCON. He's Prabhupada friendly. And yes, he does say the jiva doesn't come from Vaikuntha, and he can explain it, blah, blah, blah. And that's one of the reasons, amongst others, that we don't allow him. And just be honest about it, right?
Yeah.
There are devotees in ISKCON who may preach exactly like this Maharaj, non-different, but because they're in ISKCON, somehow they're in our platform. That's our standard. We can't let anybody outside of ISKCON speak. And maybe that'll change in the future. But I like to be honest with devotees, just say, this is the situation. Like we tell our disciples, never leave ISKCON. But we can't say, never should you disagree with something that goes on in ISKCON. Never should you just accept, because you may not. It may be something wrong. And, there may come a point where you just say, what ISKCON is doing in this particular area, if they don't clean it up, I'm at odds with my own integrity. I can't support this. I don't want to be part of this. And of course you should be, and you should be loyal to Prabhupada and you should tolerate it, but not everybody can always do that. It's just like, they haven't cleaned up this problem, the child abuse over here, and it's still not clean. And this case hasn't been settled, but whatever it is. So, I would like to say never leave ISKCON, but I also have to say, there may come a point where things get so bad that it goes, because we don't know in the future what's going to happen. And maybe standing up against that is what you have to do at that point. You say, you should follow the GBC, but what if it comes to a point in 100 years that something they're saying is like offending great devotees, and you say, I can't participate in that offense. You'll be challenged. So we have to be honest about it, right?
Yeah.
It's I think it's the best way. And we're trying to help devotees make decisions, and we don't want to treat them like children so they can't, figure things out, because we're all going to feel these things. We're all going to see through these things at some point. And a lot of reason devotees leave is because when they mature, they feel like, oh, I was treated like a kid and told, don't think like this, don't do this, don't believe like that. And now I've been a devotee for 15 years, and like, that doesn't work for me. I need, and then they go to some other guru outside of ISKCON who's talking about these things, and like, oh, I resonate with this, right? We see that a lot.
Mhm.
So we don't want to be the cause of people leaving, right?
Yeah.
Is that okay?
Yes, Maharaj. Thank you.
Thank
Okay.
you. Thank you. Thank you so much for the. This is more or less like a workshop because it's interactive, and I don't know how to describe it, but it is so fulfilling hearing you speak the way you've spoken so
Agenda is
far.
there.
It's very, very beautiful. Mitravinda Devi, I think Mitravinda may be the last person to speak, because
Yes.
Prabhu has been here for almost 2 hours. We don't want to hold him much longer than that. Mitravinda, please, you may unmute.
Of course, thank you so much, Hare Krishna. So, Maharaj, you touched on several things that I wanted to jump in about, and one is the this is a social culture, it's a social paradigm, a social vortex about bhakti, care, education, association, connection. But as some of the things you're speaking about, I know people, and I myself have had to stand alone in how I was raised, in aspects of integrity that relate to these things, like abuse of women, abuse of children. Corporate mentality does not equate to health or things relatable to spirituality and being human. Yet there seems to be an influx of corporate mentality and attraction of corporate people to Krishna consciousness. And on that realm, because they have some skill in managing buildings, let's just say, or numbers, they're kind of pushed upward in the paradigm of leadership, and the inability to care or have empathy for human beings doesn't seem to be very important. And I'm not trying to judge, but I have to speak it as a requirement for being in those leadership positions. There are new people coming into GVC and different things that are coming in without even having a good history of practicing bhakti.
I agree.
Standing alone, feeling alone, but then being told that this is an association of sangha. We must associate together. But when you feel that those around you in our temples are not addressing issues, or if you speak up, you're ostracized, or people are told not to talk to you, even new people, and you're talking about things that are relevant to bhakti, then what to do.
I was just dealing with this situation yesterday. And the conclusion I came to was grassroots. Like, I'll just tell you the situation. Well, maybe I shouldn't because I don't want to spill the beans. But I'll give you a general idea. There is a lot of mistreatment of women going on in this part of the world. Probably all parts of the world, but this part of the world. And the women are being told, you'll just tolerate it. And it's kind of empowering the men. And there's no women's ministry in this country, which is part of the reason that it's a problem, because they're not hearing from the women's voices. And so we were discussing what to do, and they're not inclined, or if there's a women's ministry, they'll create it whenever they create it, with whoever they create it, how they want to create it, and nobody can influence that. So I thought, what can we do? And so I was talking to a woman who had been abused, and her abused husband is living in the temple and being honored, and he's lying about her. And she said, there's nothing we can do. So, and so I said, let's start. I want you to reach out to women, because you can't talk to men there, because most of the men they're not maybe educated or open to it, whatever the reason is. Some will be, but apparently the leaders are not at this point. I said, well, talk to the women, start talking about it, form some kind of association where women can go and learn about domestic abuse, where they can go if they've been in that environment. So technically speaking, they're kind of creating a domestic abuse hotline, so to speak, for the people in their community under the radar unofficially. And no one's going to, they're just doing it on their own, women working together, because in that environment, women working together is very much encouraged. And we're going to try to bring some men into it also, and they will get guidance from the women's ministry. So effectively, you have some like women's ministry action, hopefully that will go on there, but it's totally like no one will even notice it, but the result will get done. And I think that's one strategy. The other strategy is that I'm making some videos on spiritual abuse, and this devotee that's helping is going to make them into reels. So they're just going to kind of like educate people, like, this is abusive, we don't tolerate this, because a lot of it's lack of education. So I think, talking about it with people who understand it, spreading the word, like, what else can you do, And I want to tell you something, all of you, this will inspire all of you. I don't know if you know this, you may or may not, but this is very inspiring. Having been in ISKCON for 54 years, so ISKCON was maybe like 4 years old when I joined, so still pretty much an infant. So I got to see it grow and go through various changes as we do, as we grow. And one of the things I noticed, which is so interesting, and I think it's just a phenomena of the idea, we say the idea whose time has come. The idea whose time has come means 10 years ago, nobody would listen to that idea, right? And so I've seen things that progressive devotees, or maybe not even progressive, but just devotees who are very balanced people, very mature, very rounded, not so black and white, so fanatical, suggested to the leaders of ISKCON in the 70s. And the leaders of ISKCON thought those suggestions were total Maya, because they were so narrow-minded. Everything, we were all brahmacharis, right? And they're saying things like, this is not going to work, like what you're saying, Mitra Binda, you have to, be more empathetic, et cetera, the leader should be this way and that way. And they were getting bashed even to the point of, you're envious for saying this, or, you're in Maya, whatever. So I was in a temple where this was happening. And then, I don't know how much later, 15 years later or so, this very idea that they presented and they were smashed down for and shamed or exposed, whatever, That was like the flagship of the GBC meeting, that idea. We're running with this idea of the GBC. So I think, all we can do is talk about it and gather grassroots and just expect someday that it's just like Krishna's going to reveal to you ever have that experience where someday everybody's talking about something that they weren't talking about 5 years ago? It's like everyone is aware of it. And so I'm just hoping and trusting that all the ideas that we have that we know are good, that are not pervasive in ISKCON, if we just keep doing our part, and so we can help as many people as we can personally, that and educate and talk about it and get more people interested. And eventually it's just going to there'll be a mass consciousness shift and people will be like, yeah, because I'm involved in things where all the leaders are on board regarding spiritual abuse. Like, this has to be stopped. This is wrong. This is bad. It's really encouraging. I think 20, 30 years ago, they would be like, whatever, So that's all I can say. I don't know if that consoles you, but at least we shouldn't stop doing what we can do and trying to educate leaders, putting on seminars about whatever it is, the importance of protecting women, domestic violence, spiritual abuse, this or that, emotional, So, you'll have 5,000 people in the temple and only 12 will come to that workshop, but those 12, and they'll all be women, or 10 will be women, but 3 of those women are the wives of the movers and shakers in that temple, and they start talking to their husband. You don't know how it's going to work, right? Or you'll get on some platform. Nam Ross will call you up, and all of a sudden, like 20,000 views of this talk you had with him, and who would have imagined? And half the leaders saw it. You just don't know. You just have to keep going.
Thank you, Maharaj. I truly appreciate your answers. I know that this platform is being watched by those. I mean, there's only a few devotees on the screen, but I do know that there are voyeurs out there who are watching. They can pull it up on YouTube. They can look at it. They pull what they want, so people are watching. I do know that it's standing for a good thing, but a lot of the people are handpicked by people in leadership who are not, and I don't want to criticize, but are not, who know of things and are not doing the appropriate thing. So the grassroots movement is important. Thank you for bringing that up. And yes, and I want to assist you. Please put your contact information for me. And I'd love to reach out and assist you further. And there's a wonderful devotee who I like talking to, whose name begins with K, Karuna. She's fire, definitely. And I really do appreciate her. We've had some very good communications on how to do things better and not be critical and be forgiving and loving and practice bhakti. Thank you, Maharaj. Hare Krishna.
You're welcome.
Hare Krishna. Please, we have Shimabara Acharya will be the last person. And the witness. Shimabara, Prabhu, please, you may unmute.
Yeah, thank you for giving me another opportunity. Thank you very much. I know time has gone.
Yeah.
But I have 2 things in my mind that I want Prabhuji to help me to clarify. One is, some critics of ISKCON say that Prabhupada instituted authority is synonymous with truth. And anyway, from my own experience, I think even though I like to always defend, but I think it's our experience, but I don't know whether Prabhupada really did this, whether Prabhupada actually, instituted that kind of thing, or whether it is actually philosophically true that authority is synonymous with truth. So that's possible. That's one question I wanted to clarify. That's another one. Maybe you want to take them one by one.
Let me take one by one. So the story in New York when Bali Mardan married a woman who said she was the daughter of Toyota and the heir to the Toyota fortune. He married her, and then she ended up manipulating the whole temple and creating havoc. They were actually, she was actually cooking meat in the temple. It was, it's a bad, unbelievable things were going on. A lot of devotees left, and a lot of devotees stayed. And Prabhupada said the ones who left were right, and the ones who stayed were right. Because, well, why should you stay and cooperate with him? And Prabhupada said, because if you all left, the temple would fall apart. And then Prabhupada said, and the leader should have spoken out against it. So you have all those things you're talking about in one, like continue following the GBC and the leaders, but if you believe they're doing something wrong, then they have to be, they have to be confronted, or whatever word you want to use. So you can do both. So Prabhupada's authority structure was, well, how could you run an organization without authority? But at the same time, whenever the authorities abused or took advantage, he would chastise them. He said, you can't do this, this is wrong. And he created a system where you could go above the authority to complain about the authority if that authority couldn't satisfy you. So the answer is yes, both things. But Prabhupada would never put you in a situation where you had to follow someone against your own better judgment or will, even with his own disciples. Except for maybe some GBCs and sannyasis, he didn't do that. He didn't force people. He would always say it's voluntary. It's, even I'm your guru, I can't force you. So, but for the integrity of an organization, there has to be some structure. So we say, yeah, follow the GBC. But GBC will pass a resolution. They passed a resolution about this or that. And 51% agreed and 49% didn't. So it's not like, oh, GBC, they shouldn't have passed that resolution. Well, half of them didn't want it, but they have to go along with it because Prabhupada wanted us to follow GBC just so we don't have, coup d'etat and, chaos, So, it's a balance of both. And I think also, what's really important, as I mentioned before, is you can't act against your own integrity. So, if the GBC is saying, like back in the day, maybe before you were devotees, we sometimes had, when we did Sankirtan, we weren't straightforward with people. So we would say the money was going for some project. Maybe it was going for that project, but not all of it. Maybe it was an exaggeration of the truth. And if you didn't want to say that, you would say, well, you're in Maya, you should just be surrendered, do whatever you have to do. Say, no, this goes against my integrity, I can't do it. And that wasn't always respected. But, if something is against your integrity, then why should you do it, even in the name of not cooperating? And the leadership should have that openness to allow for that. And if they don't, then it puts you in an awkward situation because you say, I want to do what you say, Maharaj, but I can't. And sometimes you even say that to your guru, I want to go out on book distribution, but I'll have a panic attack. I can't deal with people on the street, or whatever it is. I have disciples like that. They can't go out on the street. They don't get fired up about the fired up Sankirtan talks and classes. And like to them, it's like, I can't do this. It doesn't make sense to me. And so the leader has to be open to that and say, okay. And so, but if you're forced, it doesn't work if you don't follow your own integrity, generally. Maybe you're mistaken. That's another thing. But often it's just like then you revolt against the authority and then you don't have a place in ISKCON and you want to leave. So we don't want to create that. Need to be aware of that. Okay, last question. If you ask 3 questions, the third question, the second question is free, the third question is $10,000. Because I have to go take lunch.
$10,000. That's good money.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'll answer
thank
it for 10,000. I'll take it later lunch. Okay, so Varahacharya, one last question.
What you just said, Prabhu, there's so much inside it. But since you don't have much time, I'll keep it for another time. Now, the second question is, you used a phrase, spiritual bypass. I heard my guru saying that, but I can't really figure it out again what it actually means.
Yeah.
Can you please explain again this phrase, spiritual bypass?
It means you have certain issues, personal issues that you need to confront. but you ignore those issues, or you might be aware of those issues and you ignore them, or you just don't even try to find them because you have the holy name and that's all you need. So just like, Prabhu, you shouldn't be drinking alcohol, like you're breaking the principle, it looks like you're addicted. I know, but I'm just going to chant. Prabhu, you have a pornography addiction. I know. I'm just going to chant because if I just chant, it'll go away. Well, how long have you had the addiction? As long as I've been chanting, I still have it. Well, maybe you should deal with it. No. That's not what Prabhupada wants. I just surrender to the holy name. What about this issue you have in marriage? It looks like you have relationship issues with your wife. She's very unhappy. No, we just put Krishna in the center and everything will be fine. Well, it's not fine. Maybe you need to go to counseling. Maybe you got some anger issues you've never dealt with. No. She just upsets me. Nobody else does. I don't have anger issues. So you're trying to avoid all your problems, run away from your problems, suppress them, repress them in the name of I'll just chant Hare Krishna, they'll go away, which is fine if they go away. But if they don't, you can't validate what you're saying. So you're using the spiritual process to actually run away from the things you should be facing. From those anarthas you should be confronting and examining. That's what spiritual bypassing means. And it's it can become a real issue if it becomes a philosophy, because we'll have if you have a temple full of spiritual bypassers, you have a lot of dysfunction that's not being addressed. And sometimes the dysfunction can get worse through the process, So, like some people have, I was just talking to a devotee today and he said, I had a guilty conscience, but when I became a devotee, it got much worse. So, things can get, dysfunction can get more dysfunctional. I had low self-esteem before as a devotee, but now it's 10 times worse because every class I go to, they tell me I don't know anything and I'm stupid and I'm useless and, worthless and, can't do anything, Krishna does everything, I'm nothing. So now my self-esteem, it was at like 50%, now it's at 180%. It went off the charts, it exploded the charts, So, you know what I'm saying?
Yes. Thank you very much.
So I think, we should not be afraid to face the realities of what's going on and not hide behind anything, but just, if something is wrong, deal with it. That'll be the best thing. I'm going to go now.
Well, thank you so much.
Very much.
In fact, it's so beautiful. The last question and the last answer actually sums everything up for all this time we've been here. And Prabhuji, before you leave, on behalf of all the audience and participants on this platform, we offer our humble obeisances unto you, and we pray for for forgiveness of any unconscious offense or mistakes we might have committed along the way. But we're very much honored to have your association quite often, more than what we actually anticipated. So we can't thank you enough. Dear devotees, at this point, we're going to humbly request you all to kindly unmute yourselves, and we all chant Hare Krishna Mahamantra to express our appreciation to our revered uncle, His Grace Mahatma Prabhu Jai. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Mancha kalpa taribhyascha kripa sindhubhyeva patitanam pavanebhyo Vaishnavyo.
His Grace Mahatma Prabhu Ki Jai.
Jai. Hare Krishna.
Hare
Hare
Krishna.
Krishna.